Welcome to this comprehensive Flask Backend development tutorial. In this complete guide, we will learn how to build a professional, scalable backend application using Flask, Python's most popular micro-web framework. We will cover Flask installation and setup, creating RESTful APIs, integrating SQL Alchemy ORM with PostgreSQL database, implementing JWT authentication, adding Swagger documentation, setting up Redis caching, and deploying to production on AWS. By the end of this tutorial, you will have a production-ready Flask backend that follows industry best practices. First, let's set up our Flask development environment. Create a new virtual environment using Python-m-venv, then activate it. On Linux or Mac, use source-venv/bin/activate. On Windows, use venv/script/activate. Now install Flask and essential packages using pip install Flask, Flask RES tool, Flask SQL Alchemy, Flask JWT extended, Flask ORS. These packages provide core Flask functionality, REST API support, database ORM, JWT authentication, and CRS handling for cross-origin requests. Now let's create a basic Flask application structure. Create an app.py file as the main entry point. Import Flask and create a Flask app instance. Define a simple route using the app route decorator. Create a hello world endpoint that returns a JSON response. Set up the Flask app to run in debug mode for development. This basic structure will serve as the foundation for our RESTful API. Let's create RESTful API endpoints using Flask RES tool. Create a resources folder and define API resource classes. Each resource class inherits from resource and implements HTTP methods like get, post, put, and delete. Register these resources with the API using api.add_resource. This approach provides clean separation of concerns and follows REST principles. We'll create endpoints for user management, product catalog, and order processing. Now let's integrate PostgreSQL database using SQL Alchemy ORM. Install SICOP2 adapter for PostgreSQL. Configure database connection in a config.py file using SQL Alchemy database URI. Create models by defining classes that inherit from DB model. Use SQL Alchemy column types and relationships to define your schema. Initialize the database with db.create_all. This ORM approach makes database operations much easier and more Pythonic. Implement JWT authentication for secure API access. Install Flask JWT extended package. Configure JWT secret key and token expiration settings. Create login endpoint that validates credentials and returns access tokens. Protect your API endpoints using the JWT_required decorator. Extract user information from JWT tokens in protected routes. This provides stateless authentication that scales well for microservices. Add Swagger API documentation using Flask RESTX or Flasher. Install the package and configure it in your Flask app. Use decorators to document your API endpoints with descriptions, parameters, and response schemas. This automatically generates interactive API documentation that developers can use to test endpoints. Access the documentation at the /API/docs endpoint. Implement Redis caching to improve API performance. Install Redis and Flask caching packages. Configure Redis connection in your Flask app. Use the cache decorator to cache expensive database queries and API responses. Set appropriate cache expiration times. This significantly reduces database load and improves response times for frequently accessed data. Deploy your Flask application to production on AWS. Create an EC2 instance with Ubuntu. Install Python, pip, and required system dependencies. Set up a production WSGI server using Gunicorn. Configure Nginx as a reverse proxy to handle HTTP requests and serve static files. Set up environment variables for configuration. Use PM2 or systemd to manage your Flask application process. Configure SSL certificates using Let's Encrypt for HTTPS. Your Flask API will now be accessible from anywhere on the internet. Congratulations! You've successfully built a complete Flask backend application. We covered Flask setup, RESTful API development, PostgreSQL database integration, JWT authentication, Swagger documentation, Redis caching, and AWS deployment. Your Flask backend is now production ready and follows industry best practices. Thank you for watching, and happy coding with Flask.